All right, Richard White here today, and it's been a while since I've posted some things. This particular video, think of it as Vise advice. So I'm going to showcase a few different types of fly tying vices. In each case, the goal is not to say buy this vise, but to give you a sense of what sort of options are there for types of fly tying vices, whether you're looking for a first vise, an upgraded vise, whatever. So let's go through them. I'll start with the older, simpler models. So this particular design, very old-fashioned. You'll notice it has a fixed position for the angle of the vise. There's a lever for closing the jaws. If you zoom in, the jaws get pulled back against this ring, which closes the jaws. The lever is what does that pulling back. You can use this knob to adjust the width of the jaws. This one actually has a smaller set of jaws for smaller flies. This design of vise is old-fashioned. It's simple. It's basic. One like this is very good for small flies. They're very inexpensive. They're reliable. I mean, we've got some 30, 40 years old in excellent shape. Now, no one of these is great for every size of fly. So you can change out this whole jaw mechanism. In this case, this is for smaller flies, one for mid-sized flies, one for very large flies to cover your bases. Again, simple, reliable, but everything is in a fixed position, so you don't have as much control over your tying position. There's another option, which is instead of the type of lever mechanism we had on the last one with the pulling those jaws down against a ring, in this case we have, I'll have to get up in the air just so you can see it, you have a lever mechanism, and that lever mechanism lets you open the jaws, but it's spring closure. So these are about the simplest thing you can use to put a fly in a vise and hold it securely. They're very simple, very reliable. They feel a little big and clunky, but you'll notice on here the jaws are fairly small, so you can get fairly small flies in. Many of these will adjust merely by the spring tension is enough to hold from very small to very large flies. This particular one, you can adjust this angle here if you like. Very handy. This particular brand, Regal, are a little bit more expensive, but they're very well made. This is a variant on that Regal. Come back a little bit. You'll see it's the same general idea. Again, a lever that you squeeze to open the jaws. The jaws close very securely around the hook. Now, the nice thing about this, couple of nice things about this particular design is it's also capable of rotating. And when you get it in a position you like, you can turn this lever. Newer models, instead of a lever, they have a knob there, so you can lock it in place. Advantages of rotation: you can look at whichever side of the fly you're working on at the moment to make sure everything is where you want it. You can also use rotating vices to wrap materials around the shank of the fly. But notice with this style of rotary vise, it rotates around this axis, but the hook shank is offset from that. So it induces some wobble, so it means you need to be making adjustments with the hand holding the materials. So in this case, you could wind the materials on by turning the fly rather than going hand over hand, top and bottom. The jaws on this also don't hold very small flies very well, but I've used this one for anything from size 16 all the way up to a 5/0. So very adaptable. This particular version, made in China, which some people would be happy with, some not, They're only about $50. Very reasonable. Equivalent ones from a company like Regal are $400. Hold on one second, please. Yeah, so again, these are very simple, very reliable. You can adjust the angle, you can rotate it, you can set it in any position and get it to stay there. Wide range of flies it can hold, but this particular model, because these are very blunt, are not good for very small flies. I've had this one 30 some odd years. It's one of my go-tos, especially for bigger flies. This is another rotary style vise, again a very early rotary style. Notice it uses the same kind of closure mechanism as the first one we looked at. This one happens to be from a company called Thompson. Now notice it has 3 of these ring-like adjusters. That's because you can control not just how wide the jaws open, but it allows you to adjust the amount of tension on the rotation. So right now I have it set for a fairly high tension so it will stay where you put it. But notice again, it rotates around this shank, but the hook shank is slightly offset from that. So you can use it as a rotary vise. It's great for examining the fly in different positions. Not quite as good as some of the later designs that I'll show you for wrapping materials using rotation. But again, a simple, reliable, I've had this one for quite some time. Now the one disadvantage of these is this mechanism of using the lever to pull it back doesn't work as well for very large flies, even though they will fit in here. It doesn't hold them quite as securely unless the one you have has little notches in the jaws for capturing the bend of the fly. So this is good for, I mean, what do I have in here? Like this is a long shank number 6. I've had number 2s in there, but on number 2, the amount of leverage you have out when wrapping out here, it's harder to get it to hold it. 2-aught, 3-aught, 4-aught, it will hold them, but not as securely as some of the others. The later versions of rotary vises all involve some kind of bend here, some kind of an offset. And what that allows it to do is to have the shank of the fly perfectly in line with the rotation, so that it is very easy to wrap materials using these. And also this gap in here gives your hand very good access behind, which is not quite as easy on the inline type vices. So these offset or angled vices, I mean, most of the new rotary vices use this sort of a mechanism. This particular one is somewhat less expensive than some of the others. This is from Montana, the Mongoose. I find it's very reliable. Now, to make adjustments, you have a screw here, so you'd put the hook in, turn the screw until it just barely grabs it, then you have a lever that you use to really tighten it down. So it's a 2-part adjustment, still very quick, very easy. Hook in, snug, lock. Very reliable. Most of the newer vices use a design similar to this. The combination of screw and lever and some mechanism for this offset. Different companies do it different ways. All the same basic idea. And you can control the tension of this rotation, so you can either have it so it moves very smoothly or so it stays in place. It can be moved but will stay where you leave it. This is a slightly newer design. The original design was from an engineer in Scotland. This one is made up in Maine. Notice again, you still have that offset so that the shank of the hook is in line with the center of rotation. In this case, because of the way the jaws work, you only need, because you get a lot of leverage the way this is set up, you only need this one knob to lock the hook in. There are also little grooves for bigger hooks. So I've been tying on this as small as 20 and up to 3/0, and I think it will do bigger than 3/0. So very flexible, very simple to use, just a lot more expensive. Partly because it's made in the United States, partly little higher end engineering going into the making of them, but really nice vise, very flexible in what you can do with it, but it's expensive. We're talking it's over $500. Not in everybody's book to get. I have this vise here because it is the only vise that uses this type of mechanism. This is from a company called Vise. Again, designed by an engineer. Notice it is an offset, but it uses a rather different approach. So your center of rotation is through here. The section for actually the jaws, which are interchangeable, are set off center on the face there, so that you can align the shank of the hook with their center of rotation. You have to do it more by eye than with some. Again, it uses the screw and lever approach to lock the hook in place. But this uses ball bearings in here, so there are some things you can do with this that you can't do with others because of your ability to spin things at speed. So they have videos that go with this one and specialized tools, all of which drive the price up, that allow you to use this vise in making dubbing loops, in strengthening hackle with thread, because you can quite literally spin this. If you loosen this knob, you can spin this as fast as you need, for a variety of purposes. Can't really do that with any other vise. Or you can snug this down a little bit and it will stay where you want it. It even has a push-in locking function, so it won't go anywhere. So very fancy, flexible, highly engineered ball bearings, not surprisingly, more expensive vise. Some people love these. Some people find that they have to kind of relearn how they do some things tying to be able to use them effectively. Probably the most important advice I can give anyone looking at buying vises is, one, what kind of flies are you going to tie? Are you tying only very small flies? Are all your flies about the same size, in which case you may not need many of these functions? Are you tying a lot of flies where you care about what's on one side of the fly versus the other, so you need that rotational ability? How large a fly? Some of these are great for small, some are great for medium, small to medium, or medium to large. Some work better for very large. That all matters. And then obviously, how much are you willing to spend on the vise? You can spend anywhere from $20 for one of this nature. You can go $500, $600, $700 or more when you get up into some of the fancier vises, especially like with the Vise, where you can get lots of accessories to go with it, all of which open up other functions, but all of which will have a learning curve. Some of these have almost no learning curve. A vise like this, one of the simplest things to use, but expensive. Something like this, incredibly simple, not a great rotary function, but very inexpensive, and anything in between. So how do you know which one's right for you? Figure out, what do you need from the vise? Go try the vise. Whether it's in the shop, most fly shops, if they have them, will have some out you could try, or they will take one out for you to try. Talk to friends. If you're a member of some sort of a club or like TU or something like that, talk to them. Talk to friends, borrow a vise, go to a friend's house and tie together, try other vises. What works for you? You don't need to get talked into spending, $500-$600 on a vise. You can get a perfectly good, usable vise for 99% of what most people want to do, for far less. As I said, one of the other considerations is where it's made, but you can get really well-made stuff made anywhere. But for some people, made in the U.S., they're willing to pay extra for that. And if you are, great. You have lots of options. I've shown you 7 different vises here. There are so many more than that. It's up to you to figure out what's going to work for you. All right. I thank you very much. If you have any questions, please post them down below. If you have any comments on this, please post them down below. If you'd like to subscribe, I would really appreciate that. I don't get any money from anybody for any of this stuff. I just do this, to share what I've been seeing and knowing and learning, and hope I can learn more from other people. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.